I was muted. Greetings, fellow humans, and welcome to the Authortube Writing Conference. I'm super happy and super thrilled to have some wonderful friends over so that we can talk about how can we carry our own author voice from one genre to another, and in the case of one crazy bastard in me, from one language to another, and just be authentic to our true voices. I have some wonderful people, so rather than me just waffle on, let's just bring them in. Here we have Miss Katie Salidas, Miss A.F. Stewart. By all means, okay, alphabetical. Anita, please present yourself.
I'm A.F. Stewart, Anita Stewart. I write all things dark and stabby, which is how I go across genres. I write poetry, horror, dark fantasy, and recently a nonfiction book. So I'm all over the place.
Awesome. Miss Salidas.
Hi, guys. I am Katie Salidas. I write, just like everyone else, in multiple genres. I primarily write urban fantasy and paranormal romance. However, I do dabble in a bit of nonfiction, and my latest release is Write and Edit the Damn Book, where I teach you all of my writing tips and tricks to get your book perfect and ready to be published.
And you'll notice that we're short one person because 1 out of 4 people in this country apparently have COVID. And unfortunately, our dear Bobby Nash came down with COVID. He is the author of comics, novels, screenplays. I read this book, which is Night Vale. He's a cool guy. He has no voice. So by all means, show him some love. The links to his channel are below. As for me, I am a woolly, scruffy indie author from Puerto Rico who now lives in Atlanta. I do have 19 books. And if I do this with squats, you know, I can work on my glutes pretty good. These range from middle grade fantasy, poetry, nonfiction, urban fantasy, and bilingual collections, and even something peculiar that I like to show off once in a while called Blind Comics. Basically, as a storyteller, I'm blind, so I give you the panels, I give you the dialogue, I tell you what happens in the panels, but since I can't draw, I need you to help me see the story. So 2 original titles. If you're curious about that, leave a comment. I'll get to you. So jumping from genre to genre, some people go like, why the hell do you do that? Because a lot of people want to dedicate themselves to either horror or sci-fi or fantasy. But I suspect that, like me, you're like, why the fuck limit myself? And sorry for the F-bomb, but hey, this is not going to get monetized.
I think that's true, though. We write what we want to read, and we don't read strictly in one genre. So why would we only write in one genre? Although the typical advice is to stick with something and build your brand within it, a lot of us do like to branch out because that's how we read.
Yeah, well, I started out just wanting to write fantasy, and then I fell into horror, decided I like killing characters off, and and the poetry I've always written, so I just decided to publish that too. And the nonfiction stuff, why not? You know, it's I've just never wanted to limit myself with anything. I have a story. This is the story. It happens to be horror today. It happens to be fantasy tomorrow. I'm writing a sci-fi serial over on Ko-fi. Whatever my little brain wants to write gets written.
But I think that also speaks to our desire to. The word innovate sounds a bit presumptuous or a bit too lofty.
Jargon.
We want to, you know, if we have an idea, since we're indies, we have the freedom to pursue it and try to execute it to the best of our abilities. Anita writes horror haikus. Is that something that you've heard before? Until Anita, I hadn't heard that, and then I was like, wow, a lot of people write this.
Yeah.
And
well,
it's
that
all
was
about having fun.
Andromeda's fault. You can blame her for that because she started it over on Twitter. So, I mean, at least for the group she was doing, it may have been elsewhere at the time as well. So, but yeah.
Well, that's another beautiful thing about indies. You know, we connect with different people. I haven't written a lit RPG. I'm not into it, but I have seen people that explore that genre, and I don't think that if it weren't for writing communities, people would even know about that genre. I can't even. I haven't even read a book, but I know it's out there and that people do it. But then again, some people like to write dinosaur erotica and they love it.
There's something for everybody.
There is something. There is a kink for everyone, absolutely everywhere. Is that disturbing? Extremely. But, if it's not hurting anyone, come on, just
There
leave
you
them
go.
alone.
There you go. I fell into nonfiction by accident. My editor at the time, this is way back in 2012 when I wrote Go Publish Yourself, she was always asking me questions because she was my editor as a freelance editor, but she was interested in publishing herself and wanted to know all of the things that I had learned over the couple of years prior to that in getting my books published. And so as she was asking questions and I was giving her answers, she's like, put this in a book. You need to do this so that other people can stop asking these dumb questions like me. I was like, okay. And I did that. And I found I really liked giving, insight and information and sharing some tips and some tricks and things that I've learned the hard way along the way so that maybe others couldn't, bypass those roadblocks and have an easier time to it. And that led to, Go Publish Yourself, followed by Write and Edit the Damn Book. And there'll probably be more because there's always something new to learn.
Well, I read Write and Edit the Damn Book. And the thing that is interesting, I've seen Anita's show, Everyone Dies, and wonderful, and about killing and stuff. But if you read anything of Anita in fiction and then in the poetry that's on the darker side, you're going to see certain elements that gravitate. If you know Katie and you read the book, it's Katie talking to you. It's there isn't oh yes, look at me, I have flowery language. No, it's her, balls to the wall, super honest, and just being honest to what's in her and what's her experience and her true voice. And a lot of people say, how can you maintain that from genre to genre? And the first question that I answer, and the first thing that I say to the people when they say something like that, I go like, okay, so what are your emails like, or what are your text messages like? Because when I write a happy birthday message, it's not HBD, which I hate. It's not congrats or just an emoji and stuff like that. I try to write a message specifically for the person and try to link to something that connects us to either we work together, we studied together, we read the same book or something. And in that, when I write reviews or when I do video game reviews, when I do reviews for the food that I try for everyone's entertainment, that recently I tried some atrocious things from Brock's, which is a turkey dinner candy corn. If that sounds like a really bad idea, it is, but it makes for good TV. So by all means, check that video later. But
it was very good TV.
It was awful. No, Anita's like, try the peas. And the peas weren't the worst. The worst was the turkey. The turkey was atrocious. And that one, fortunately for the peas, the captain came in, my wife came in with a cup so that I could spit it out because it was bad. It was very, very bad.
Yeah, well, that just shows you that my personality, because my personality has a little imp in the back of my head that says, yeah, just dare somebody to do something. And that's what I do with my characters. There's the little imp in the back of my head that makes them do very bad things all the time.
No, and let me check the comments because it's been active. So first off, hello to everyone. Thank you for, please, by all means, listen to the sexy, silky voice and click that like and subscribe button. If there's a notification for one of my videos, please click on it so that you can get this voice, because I'm not going to do that whole silky Rico Suave thing. And people go like, oh, yes, Latin lover. And I'm like, only with the misses.
Hey, that voice is hot.
People
like
it. Let's keep talking. If anyone has a question and we don't answer, by all means, insist on copying and pasting. But let's keep the discussion going. Something that I do in all of my works is I hide little Easter eggs for me. I'm gonna have to edit the damn thing. That means I'm gonna have to read the damn thing 15, 20 times. So I need something that makes me smile. So I hide fragments, non copyright infringing fragments of lyrics or allusions to lyrics or characters based on singers and people that I love. I've written characters based on Lane Staley. I've written characters based on Shannon Hoon. I've written characters based on 2 iterations of Tori Amos, because why not? There's a character based on the song "Whole Lotta Rosie" from AC/DC, because I love that song and I wanted a voluptuous character that gave no F's and just got stuff done. So at least that's part of what I do. What about you guys?
I hide little references to TV shows, movies. A lot of my poetry is actually inspired by TV shows or movies. I've written stuff for Game of Thrones, Justified, Doctor Who. My Past Legends book has a Doctor Who reference in it. It's again, it's non-trademarky. One of the characters almost says it's bigger on the, but and the other character says, if you say that, I'm going to smack you. Anyway, so, and one of my flash fictions has an anagram of Serenity from Firefly. A short story I did has one of the characters is named, the last name is Winchester, and he's making a deal with the devil, which also has another supernatural reference in it, which is a coincidence, because at the time I named the devil character Abaddon. And then later, the supernatural TV show actually had a character named Abaddon. Total coincidence.
It's embedded within you. Well, I don't know how many references I have to Big Trouble in Little China, and they're not going to stop. That's my movie. That's my, my wife and a lot of women, when they get sick, they watch Dirty Dancing because that's their go-to movie. That's their chicken noodle soup for the soul. My chicken noodle soup for the soul is, Jack Burton and Wang Chi kicking ass and shaking the pillars of heaven.
Princess Bride for me.
Die Hard.
And the Asset series is a love letter to that, amongst other things.
Yeah, my go-to movies are Die Hard, John Wick, any good action movie.
Yes.
Where there's a high body count.
Oh yeah, if there's the high, the best one is Shoot 'Em Up with Clive Owen and the carrot.
He's
Love
always,
the carrot.
And actually, I do think that the montage of the Ace of Spades, I'm not going to say it's just super cheesy, but super fun in that movie. And I love it so much. So which genres did you start in? What was the first thing that you guys dove into? And when was the first hard pivot that you did, that you went like, you know what, I want to do this, so I'm going to do it?
Oh, I started with urban fantasy, and then shifted immediately into erotica, and then to paranormal romance, and then to dystopian. I kind of ping-ponged all across the board.
Well, I started with a poetry book. Then I did fantasy short stories. And then I wrote a nice flash fiction for a contest that I had on a writer's group. Totally lost my muse, and that's how I got into horror, because I wrote a horror story to get it back. I wrote a prequel to Jack the Ripper. So
sometimes you have to test out different genres to
yeah,
find where you're most
my
comfortable.
muse does not like nice.
My muse does not like
totally
limited.
said, no, I'm not giving you any more ideas if you're going to do nice. So I had to do something drastic to get it back.
So
yeah, that's how I started writing horror.
Okay, the first time that I did an event, let me see if I have a copy. Because if not, I will just make a fool out of myself. No, here it is. Okay. So, first time that I did the Puerto Rico Comic Con, which was 2014. It's been a hot minute. I had my first novel, Only Human. I had Between the Tides, which is poetry. And to boot, I had The Daydreams on the Sherbet Shore. Here's the thing. This is The Daydreams on the Sherbet Shore. These are middle grade short stories. Whimsical little short stories. This is book form. This began as hand-bound short stories, and the hand-bound stories, actually my in-laws helped me do the hand-bound short stories. I still have a couple of copies back in storage back home. So it started like that because it's something that I was doing on the blog, and it evolved and evolved and evolved until it became what it became. And people go like, okay, so you like vampires that don't sparkle, decapitations, angels, demons, poetry, and daydreams about curiosity cola. And I'm like, yeah, Yeah. If you see my playlist of music, this shouldn't shock you. I go from like Eels and Ani DeFranco and mellow 90s music. And then I listen to Meshuggah, and then I listen to salsa, and then I listen to reggae, and then I listen to whatever. My shuffle is very shuffly.
I'm very categoric, but I like a lot of things. So I will listen to one kind of a music for a while, and then I'll shift gears and listen to something completely different. And my writing does the same. I'll be in an erotica mood for a while, and I'll write erotica. I'll be in a paranormal romance mood for a while. I'll write that. I'll be in a nonfiction mode, and I'll write that. But I tend to like stick in one category until I've sated myself with that category, and then I can move on.
Okay.
Yeah, well, with my fiction, it's usually involving history or mythology or something like that. So I can jump from horror to fantasy or whatever. The flash fiction, I will write just about in any genre, because it depends on the story. And I've written straight up fiction, no genre at all in flash fiction, and I've written a lot of sci-fi as well. But with the poetry, that is all over the place. I've got a volume of women's issues that just came out, Roses and Ashes, poems about feminism, sexism, love and hate. I've got the horror poetry, which is the poetry of monsters and madness. That's just the pure horror poems all the way through.
I read that one.
Yeah. And the horror haikus, the same. Both of those, they're mostly haiku. Mostly haiku. There's a few regular poems at the end, and then I've got a mixed bag of poetry books that have some normal poetry, some fantasy poetry, sci-fi poetry, horror poetry. I've got places of poetry is all about travel in one form or another. And so, yeah, the poetry's all over the place.
Okay. Katie, have you ever written poetry?
Nope, I am not a poet.
Yeah.
That is one area I've never been able to dabble in, but I don't speak as well in metaphor.
Okay. You speak in erotica. Mm.
Well, no, I think I'm just more, I'm more in your face, matter of fact, reactionary. I never got the flowery language. And I think that you can feel across a lot of the stories that I write is I'm very much, here's the facts.
So there you go, people. Anita and I, we like poetry, but if you want in-your-face erotica, you have Katie. Okay, we have a question. I don't know if it's the first one, but it's the first one that I saw. This is from Miss Margaret Penard, Margarita. Does the same story element come first in each of these genres for you all? And setting, character, premise, etc. But this is the base question. Anyone want to tackle this first?
What's the idea for me? It's some idea in my head, whether it's a poem or a story or a novel. It all starts with the idea, like the what if, or the vision. Like with the poem, sometimes I just get a picture. It's like a lot of it's visually inspired with me with the poetry. And I was looking at Impressionist paintings, and I wrote a poem about Impressionist paintings. And described what they painted in words. And so, yeah, it's all about the idea visually. And then I get the character and the beginning and the ending, and then I connect the two of them.
Okay.
Yeah, I think I agree with that. The idea tends to come first. I know with the first story I wrote, the Immortalis series, it was, we always see the immediate transition from human to vampire, and then they're off to their adventure. They're on their own life. But what about how hard that transition is? That was the question I wanted to answer with that series. So I wanted to show the struggle, going from a human to a monster, and are they really monsters? From the Chronicles of the Uprising series, the question was, vampires are on top of the food chain, but they're on top of the food chain and they're outnumbered by their food. So what if their food turned the tables on them? And so we have enslaved vampires being used for blood sport because the human races overpowered them. How do we fight against that? And I tell it from the vampire's perspective. With the Agents of Asset series, it was, we see superheroes show up and they're so overpowered, and it's so easy for them to do what they need to do. But what if your superpower was ridiculously stupid? And you still have to rely on, your brains and, what you can physically do. So I have a main character, and this is a love letter to all fantasy. So I do put a lot of fantasy elements in there, but her magical gift is nothing that really helps her in any way that it's going to overpower at all. It's kind of almost useless, but she's still got to be that, superhero in this world. So it's always the idea, I think, that comes first. And then I find the characters to fit within it.
Okay. For me, what I tell people is that you need some type of capture tool. I've used a napkin to write down a poem that I've included in my work. I've had notes. I have voice memos if I'm driving, etc. And sometimes you just need a good memory to remember ideas. Ideas can come from so many places for me. Sometimes it's a character that I go like, this character, I want to do something with him. To give you an example of a future work that I'm going to be doing, I saw some road signs, and it did the title of the book that I'm not going to mention because it's a hell of a title, and it was just happenstance. And I was like, wow, that could be this, and that. And it just the title fired so many ideas in my brain that I was like, whoa, this is a rush. Another thing, this is my middle grade, Given to Fly. So I can't get it now because it's in the closet and it's going to be super clunky. So my wife gifted me a notebook way back when. She asked me randomly, oh, what's a picture that means a lot to you? And I'm like, the single for Given to Fly, that picture blows me away. She got me like a hardbound notebook with a hardcover case with that and my name on it, like, write this book. And I'm like, I was blown away. And I was like, what the hell am I going to write? What the hell am I going to write? Then we went on a trip to the Magic Kingdom in Disney World in the Epcot Center. And I got on the ride Soarin'. I had never been on this ride. I didn't know what the ride was about. It's a flight simulator. If you've never been, I highly recommend it. It's one of my favorite rides. So it lasts about 2.5 minutes, 3 minutes. While I'm doing this and enjoying it and being blown away by the vistas and the experience and etc., the entire plot of the novel just came into my brain, and it was super overwhelming because it hasn't happened since then that I get like the entire idea of a novel in 3 minutes. And then we get off the ride and I'm crying and she's like, are you okay? And then I tell her and she's like, but kind of weird, but and I love you. And then we went and we had lunch and it was wonderful and merry. So it depends and it varies. And, each project for me is a little different monster, and how I tame it depends on what it is. There are actually several other questions, so let's tackle. Miss Rachel Adams, do you think using pen names when you cross genres is necessary these days? I'm going to give you a really short answer. It depends on your preference. Some people will swear by you have to have a different pen name. Other people will say whatever. When it comes to me, my vision as a creative, as a creator, and as a writer is that I want people to see the breadth of creativity that I like to explore. I describe the different genres that I tap as visiting and tapping into different soul wells, and I don't want to limit myself. And I want people, if someone wants to write X or Y, why not Z and Alpha and Gamma and whatever the hell?
Yep.
It depends on the genre too, because if you're writing erotica and children's lit, you definitely want pen names.
Okay, that one and if I ever do write erotica, I do have a pen name set for that. That's the only distinction that I would have. I do write horror and I do write kid lit under the same pen name, but erotica, that is a bit much.
Yeah, I mean there are some genres that you do want to separate, but pen names, like it's your, like he said, it's your preference really. I mean, I use a pen name A.F. Stewart, but not because of any genres. I use that because there was a writer in Canada named Anita Stewart who wrote cookbooks, and yeah. And I'm sorry I used initials now, because initials, I hate them so much. But
I have the same problem. I did my dystopian under K.A. Solitis instead of Katie Solitis, and people still can't find it. They're like, oh, you wrote a dystopian? What? The problem with pen names is you have to do the branding for them as you would for your regular name. And that becomes a time sink. So the marketing of just one book or one series takes up X amount of time. Well, if you're writing in multiple genres with multiple pen names, you have to develop each of those names as its own brand. And so you have to devote that time. Other than the erotica, which I think we all agree, you keep that one separate. And my erotica is written under a separate name too. It just, how much of a hassle are you willing to deal with? That's the question.
Exactly. And also it's almost the same when you have two social media channels that some people want to have branded content for one thing, and another thing, my experience is that one is gonna take all your attention. One's gonna be more fun than the other. Plus, my name, my birth name, the thing is that it is so ordinary. It's Jorge de Jesus. I don't put it. It's not a secret or anything. The thing is that if you go to Puerto Rico, way back in the day, and you went to the phone book and you looked up Jorge de Jesus, there were like 2.5, 3 pages of Jorge de Jesus. In my high school, there were 4 Jorge de Jesus. And the other thing is that if you're writing about angels and demons, having Jesus in your name is kind of a little off-putting. And I don't want, I want everyone to enjoy it, but I don't want people going like, oh, this is going to be something, for me, for my Bible class. It's like, no. And the other thing is that my pen name is actually a tribute to Mom. If you say it in Spanish, J de Estrada, it would be Estrada's J. And I'm always going to be a mama's boy. So even in that. And there was another question. Wait, no, sorry. We saw that one, but. Wait. No, it was relayed by Jenna. Let me see if there are any other questions. Yes. Another from Miss Pinard. Do you find one genre to take more gestation time consideration than another? Do you think this affects voice? More than genre, I think it's form that takes more time than the other. If it's a short story, the thing is that I can ruminate on a short story idea, but then when I write it, I try to write the entire short story in one go. With a novel, look at how long I've taken with other projects.
I would say genre does play a part in the length of it for me, because I write a lot of historical fantasy and historical horror-based stuff. So I got a lot of research to do. So that takes up a great deal more time than, say, if I'm writing poetry or if I'm writing short stories that, you don't need to do as much research, or just straight up serial killer fiction. You don't need as much research as if you're doing historical. I mean, I've been working on my Renaissance fantasy now for 3 years now, at least.
Well, I've been working on the follow-up to finish the human cycle for 6 years, and in those 6 years I've released I don't know how many other books, and it's like, when are you going to release this one? And I'm like, when am I going to get flooded with reviews? When I get flooded with reviews and I feel really bad about it, then I go like, oh God. When I get to triple-digit reviews, we'll talk about me worrying more, and it's going to be done by next year, but still.
Can we talk a second about that? How reviews are also motivating for your favorite author. So if you're hoping to nudge that author into finishing a book, maybe that they've been promising you for a while, those reviews are a really good way to do it.
Yeah, they are. But in terms of voice and crossing genres, my experience also is that some people want to support and they want to buy a book. And it's like, I had a very, very sweet coworker from a job way back when. She bought Only Human. It's like, I'm just not into it. And I'm like, that's fine. That's why I've written something like this and this. Oh, that I would enjoy. And I'm like, go. Here's another question. This one from Susan Montgomery. How do you carry your voice across your genres when it comes to newsletters, vids, blog posts, etc.? Make a little for each audience genre. That's this. Do you remember Back to School? It's like the question had, I don't know how many subsets. That's a big one. So, ladies,
I think in the beginning, when you don't know your author voice, it's harder. As you're kind of testing the waters and feeling out where you're comfortable writing, your voice tends to change a little bit from, thing that you're writing to thing that you're writing. For like blog posts, sometimes you want to be a little bit more academic in how you come across if you're trying to convey knowledge. Sometimes you want to be a little bit more fun and frivolous if it's, a fun post that you're making or an email to a colleague or a friend. So I think in the beginning, when we don't know our voice, it's easier to see the fluctuations. But as you become comfortable with the way that you write and the voice, it's kind of a second nature. This is who I am. This is how I write. And this comes across so that in anything that I write, you can tell that was Katie Solitis that wrote that.
Yeah, I play up the evil. So everybody who knows in my group, in my newsletters, she's killing somebody today.
Words that kill?
Yeah. Well, why do you think Joe came to me?
I know. Okay, let me pull the question up because there's a couple things. Okay, blog posts and newsletters and non genre. Okay, I'm gonna try to be succinct, which I suck at, so bear with me. For social media, I try to have a schedule of what I do on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. Monday, I do visual typos. Visual typos, I take shopping mall, and then I have Darth Mall with a shopping cart, to give you an example. On Tuesdays, I have dictionaries, and I take a word that has TY or TIE or something with T and make a T-infused twist on it. I also do my taste test Tuesdays on Tuesdays, where I try different sorts of stuff, because part of me always wants to share experiences, good or bad. It's all entertaining. On Wednesdays, I do Sky Thoughts. Sky Thoughts, I take the picture or someone sends me the picture, and I try to, where do I want my mindset to be that day? Those are the ones that I actually write in the moment. Other stuff I can do ahead. That one is like, what you read, I wrote 10 minutes ago, maybe. Sorry if there's a typo. Rarely happens, which I'm amazed by the way. On Thursdays, I do Sock It To Me because I love funky socks. I have Joker socks today because the Joker is my buddy, my spirit animal, which I once said on Twitter, and someone was like, that is an irresponsible thing to say because spirit animals. And I'm like, oh, Lord, get off your soapbox. I also do Double O Bananas on Fridays, which is me. I am a banana secret agent. They're silly little tributes to Charlie Chaplin and just to get a smile from people. And I do a post saying, cheers, Mama Estrada. My mother, she passed away in 2019. But everything since she got diagnosed with cancer, a really close friend of mine, Larissa Warby, she suggested, why don't you do toast to your mom? And I'm like, I'm going to run with that idea like you have no idea. And it's just me saying, with either tea or a margarita or a beer or something, and saying cheers to mom. So that's a varied thing. I also share the movies that I'm watching, video games that I'm doing, and then occasionally I do some book promotions. But people who see me on social media and see me on YouTube or see me on a podcast or read an interview, they go like, dude, you're exactly the same. And I'm like, yeah, it takes way too many calories and brain power to be a hypocrite and have an online persona. There's some, hi people, welcome to BookTube, and that stuff that works for some people. That doesn't work for me. And
what do we tell people when we're talking about marketing all the time? Be authentic.
Yeah. So and when it comes to a blog, the blog is me writing nonfiction. And oftentimes I'm just trying to cope and make sense of the madness of the world that is around us. And, that's my nonfiction. My nonfiction is trying to have a positive impact rather than just critical thinking and stuff like that. It's trying to begin a dialogue, which is in such short supply lately.
I will say I use a lot of self-deprecating humor. I think that's part of my brand.
Yeah.
Yeah, see, I go for the black humor, the dark humor, and the weird typos. My group loves the weird typos, which there are many in my book, because my little fingers don't type things correctly all the time.
Somebody in the comments had made, and it's scrolled past by now, had made the comment about the customer service voice, and I think we should address that in the whole voice thing, because that's, I think, what the younger authors do, or the ones who haven't found their voice. initially they're like, this is what an author sounds like. I should sound like this when I write.
Well, I think when it comes to voice, what people struggle with, too often I read something that this is what's supposed to happen, or this is the correct resolution, rather than the organic and real resolution that comes from you. A twist that is, you telegraph it, and some people go like, oh, here I can reveal it. He is also his father. And it's like, yeah, it's been done, buddy. Let's, let's freshen it up.
Well, I say from interviewing authors, the most genuine and the most fun interviews are the authors who are themselves, who actually enthuse about their work, and they want to talk about their dragons or their knights or their spaceships, and they have genuine pleasure in it. And if that comes across from the author, then that will come across to the reader, and the reader's going, "Ooh, that sounds like fun."
No,
Yeah, it's like when you're writing, if you're crying, your readers will cry. You've done your job.
But
What
viewers,
if you're laughing
audiences,
when you're killing someone?
Some of your readers are laughing too.
they go, yes, stab him
Yes,
this time.
I'm disemboweling him. How fun!
It's like, so what does that smell like? Tell me.
Yeah, I could probably tell you, but I don't think you'd like it.
No,
Not that I've experienced firsthand. I've just done research.
Hey,
I'm not a
plotting the
serial
deaths is
killer. I'm
sometimes
just
just
saying
as
that.
fun as writing them. Okay.
but I think that brings a very important topic in terms of the author persona and what people want to project and what people are willing to do to have acceptance from either peers or people that they admire or respect. Since I was a teenager, it's like, love me or hate me. This is the package. I'm not going to modify who I am, just that you're more comfortable. And that goes for who I am, how I project myself, the work that I put out, what I publish, and how I publish it. If there's a typo, if I change verb tenses and there's, warts and all, fine. That happens. But people say, oh, you wrote something with vampires, that's going to sell like hotcakes. And I'm like, I didn't write it to sell like hotcakes. I wanted to write and writing something that meant something to me. It just grew to the point where it's a very personal story. And there are a lot of chunks of me, like deep chunks of who JD is in that story. And people go like, oh, this character is you. And I'm like, no, this character is you. And I'm like, no, actually, my literary personification is Fayette Odstein, and he appears in several of my books, and because I like to make cameos in my work, so why not? There's another question.
I always give characters traits that I wish I had. So instead of it being me in the story, it's the me I wish I could be.
Yeah, there's only one character in my books. It's me, and that's the lead character for the Camelot Mortals books.
And the thing is that who's going to copy you? Who's going to copy you better than, and who's going to write you better than you? No one. Another question from Ms. Bernard. I often try to sell the book I think someone will most enjoy when they come up to me at a book sale. How to know which of 5 to promote when the audience is invisible, like on YouTube? That is a big question, because it's in person and it's also when you're promoting, and it's, what do you think is going to sell in a different time, or what do you want to push? The thing is that my problem is I have so many books that I switch a lot, and that's why I don't get traction. And I'm trying to focus more on one book. And then when I go like, okay, dude, you've been at it for 3 weeks, 4 weeks, you can shift now. That's when I change.
If you are enthusiastic, like Anita was saying earlier, her most fun interviews are the ones where the author's super enthusiastic about telling about their books. If you're talking about all the different books you write with that genuine enthusiasm, you're going to spark something within your audience. They might not all like the same book, but if you're talking about the different things you promote or the different books you've written and the different styles with that enthusiasm, you're going to be able to pull in the readers who like that specific thing.
Yeah. I think also how you sell it. I'm going to be doing a video about originality further on, but people say that they love originality, and the fact is that they also like the familiar. Mm-hmm. Sometimes how you sell, how do I sell Given to Fly? Do you like Studio Ghibli films? If they say yes enthusiastically, that's almost a guaranteed sale, because as soon as you describe the premise, as soon as they see the front cover, the back cover, and they read the first couple of pages, they're like, I'm sold. With other books, it's a harder sell. With poetry, I go like, oh, do you like Bukowski? And they go like, oh, who's that? And I go like, okay, this person is not that knowledgeable in poetry. So I have to, and you pivot and you see where you go with the person. When you're doing it blind on YouTube, the first challenge is remembering, because you finish the video and you go like, damn, I didn't promote any of my books. For this, you can do an end credits and you can do end videos. That's probably a best practice that some people are going to recommend. It's not something I do, not because it's not a best practice, just because I forget.
Yeah, but I mean, taglines and branding can come in handy when you want to promote across all your books. It's like I said in the intro, I write all things dark and stabby, which is true, but that pretty much will tell you all you need to know about my books. If you like horror, if you like killing characters dying, if you like true crime and things like that, it's all in there for you to go and read. So I recommend that authors, figure out what their main theme is across their books and get a tagline.
And having events and finding out what works.
Yeah.
One of the biggest selling points for my books is that I say, if you want violence, check this. If you don't want violence, check this. And by that initial reaction, you kind of have an idea how you can engage with that person and what they're going to be into.
Yep.
Another question. Thank you. By the way, thank you. You wonderful, sexy chat section. You guys are on fire. Do you find that you keep similar theme no matter the genre? Recurring themes are also part of the voice. I think there are certain things that, growing up Catholic and then deciding to be agnostic, that kind of bleeds through. I don't say it blatantly because I don't want to market myself as, oh yes, he's the agnostic writer, but that's part of it. And also because I do think that when it comes to religion, it's different languages for the same message. That's the way that I perceive it. I think that all religions, as long as they help you to get the best out of you, they're completely valid and they should be accepted. But that's me. Between that and good manners, the good manners, they come in all sorts of ways, and sometimes someone is rude for X or Y, and they can either get cussed out or they can die.
Yeah. My themes across most of my books are history, mythology, and villains.
I tend to go with the monster's not who you think it is kind of a theme across a lot of my books.
Indeed. Let me see what. I'm happy that someone remembers something that I said in another interview. I wanted to bring that up. This is my channel, so I can have my little moment.
You do that.
And very happy that you guys are finding this helpful. I'm trying to catch up with the questions, but I get excited. It's with Katie and Anita, so it's like a good hangout.
Right?
Goofy sincerity. Yeah.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, but not in all of my works. I hope. Well, sometimes it's some sort of goofiness is going to come out. Seeing if there's any. Had to bring that up. Come on. Salud. Cheers. And cheers to expand on this a little bit more. I'm going to say cheers, Mama Estrada, and I'm going to explain it for like a minute. Thoughts and prayers are beautiful. Thoughts and prayers can help people. But I wanted to send Mom positive vibes. And you have no idea how it impacted her positively to hear that people were toasting to her good health with a margarita, with a beer, with an ice cream or something. Because thoughts and prayers are nice, but it often has that sad connotation. When it comes to Cheers, Mama Estrada, it's all about celebration, and we're rooting for you. And even though you're going through chemo and that sucks, you got this, and keep going ahead with a smile. And she always did. I saw her on, I don't know how many times. I went with her to at least 3 infusions. Always an attitude. And when she got to the medical office, people would go like, "Oh, she's here." And also, come on. I think I'm not sure if I did that dictionary. If not, Margaret, I'm going to do that next week. I'm reading.
I think that is part of your brand, though, is positivity, hopefulness, something to laugh at, something to bring a smile to your face. Because you talked about Double O Banana. Every time that pops up on my feed, I'm like, oh,
No,
it's that goofy, funny little moment of your day, and you look forward to it.
Yeah.
For the longest time, I was a super pessimist, and still that's part of the default setting, and it's something that I have to, go against. And when I did that switch, like in my mid-20s, because I got called out on it, got called out point blank. I can't keep talking to you. You're always negative. There's several ways you can take that. I was like, I'm going to take this on board. I apologize. I don't think this friendship is salvageable, but it's something that I appreciate to this day. And here's another question. Now, a series. Oh, Lord. Okay, how do you feel about holding off on releasing a series in different genres from the series you're currently selling? I haven't finished one of my series, and I still release other books, so that's how I feel about it. I haven't released more than one series that haven't made releases in different series. As soon as I'm done with this one, I will work on another one, but I will probably have the first 2 books written before I start to publish and start to announce, because selling a sequel, oh Lord, that is oof, that is intense.
Well, I have a fantasy series, a contemporary fantasy series. The first fantasy is epic. A horror series, and I'm currently writing the sequel to this book, Visions and Nightmares, which is Visions and Fairy Tales. Not Visions and Fairy Tales and Nightmares. Sorry, get the title right. It's been a long day.
Quick question. How many books have both of you published? We haven't mentioned that yet.
Over 30. I stopped counting.
Yeah, I stopped counting after 20. So
yeah.
A lot of them are anthologies, though. So I've only got like one story in it. So
I'm pretty sure someone was going to ask that, and if not, now I have 19, so I'm actually the one that has the least, and I have to catch up. We do have another question. How do you feel about having different pen names for each separate genre? Oh, we actually covered this before.
Yeah.
So you will have to check. You will have to check the replay. We have
on
different opinions.
On the previous question about releasing books and holding off on the series, because I do have a lot. I'm like a little kid showing their art project to their parents. The minute I finish a book, look at the thing I created. So I've never held off on anything. If I'm writing this, I'm going to write it, finish it, publish it, and then I may go back to the series, or I may go continue with this series. I maybe it's the ADD. I don't know, but I have to like immediately show off my work as soon as it's done.
I think that temptation applies to many of us. And people go like, oh, so how do you celebrate when you release a book? It's like, well, let's get to the next one. I actually have pending to share the books that I've published and all the notebooks for the projects that I have still there. We have another question. This one's from Lauren Dell. Do you struggle finding writing events to attend aside from this one? There's online and there's in person. What you feel comfortable with, that's one thing. And how much it costs, that's another thing. Katie has gone to several events this year. She can speak a lot more to that. Anita, I'm not sure if you've done stuff in
person. I struggle finding live in-person events because there's not a lot in Nova Scotia. We do have one big convention in October, HalCon. I've been there a couple of times. And we have a smaller one that just started up, which is a gaming convention. And I haven't been there yet because the COVID things happened, and so right around the time that they had started up. So but online stuff I do quite a bit. I'm also involved in the QuaranCon convention that happened in last April, which is always a lot of fun. That's run by author Virginia McLean and a few other authors. They have some really good panels and workshops if you want to check them out, including the one that I was on, the Great Fantasy Bake Off, where you can get to see an author eat bad jelly beans and make faces on air.
I need to get on that.
Oh, that was so much fun. Yeah. And I convinced with what part of that panel was trying to convince the host to pick our menu for her birthday. And I convinced her with Tyrion Lannister and pancakes. You got to go see it.
Okay.
Later, leave that link in the comments, and then timestamp it. It's like to make a reference. That sounds like a lot of fun.
Oh yeah, that was a great fun. That great fantasy bake off.
Okay, I'm checking because we got 10 minutes ago. I'm seeing if there's. By the way, Bobby, you getting a shout out? We miss you, Bobby. Bobby, Ricky, Bobby. Okay, so we're caught up on the questions.
So going to events near you, or at least for starting out, wherever you can drive to, make that your radius.
Yeah.
And then if you can expand beyond that, do that, because it's going to cost money to go to live events. If you do book sales at like comic conventions, fantasy, sci-fi conventions, or what have you, you've got to factor in the travel costs if you can afford it. A lot of times when I talk to clients about, getting their book out there and stuff, first thing I tell them is budget. Can you afford it? Look at all the costs, make sure you're okay with it, because anything you do is not a guarantee of sales. It can help, but it's not a guarantee. So if you're going to these events, do it with the right mindset, do it with a purpose. I always like to find events that I can do panels on, because then I feel like I'm able to share information, and I love sharing information. I love talking to people. If it's, if your books are fantasy related, Comic-Cons are excellent for that, because you're around a lot of people who are fantasy and sci-fi genre people. So they will most likely integrate well with your, the style of stuff that you write. For online, join a lot of author groups. That's where you're going to find, people who are calling out for, hey, I need somebody to be on this panel, or I want, we're doing this event. We're looking for people to sign up.
Yeah.
Then you can do something that is low cost or no cost and still get yourself out there.
Yeah. By the way, Katie has a show called Spilling Ink. Anita has several shows that she's on. I
Just
always
two.
get. It's still, but you've done several, and plus, Go Indie Now. If you haven't checked out Go Indie Now, I don't know why not.
I will be guesting on the Indie Mayhem after the Talking After May Indie Mayhem show on Tuesday, because apparently they invited me because I've been commenting in all the shows, so I'm stalking them apparently.
So Indie Mayhem is like a type of game show that they do on Go Indie Now. Go Indie Now has a very varied selection of programming. I've been on a bunch of shows. I do music reviews, and actually that's where I met Katie and Anita. Thanks to that network, I've met a bunch of people. In terms of, I'm from Puerto Rico. The pandemic has sucked for a lot of people, but something good that happened is that I connected with a bookstore from Puerto Rico called Tazas y Portadas, and they have a writing community. Thanks to that link and the shows that I've been on, I've been able to be on several other shows, and it's all about connections, by the way. I have my books in Puerto Rico. By the way, if you're going to buy them physically and you want them signed and dedicated, please go to tazasyportadas.com. I'm going to put it in the comments. Wait, I'm going to look it up and make sure that I have the correct link. Lovely people. They support a lot of indies in Puerto Rico. Just good vibes all around, and it's all about putting yourself out there. In person, I love you. See, that's what I'm talking about. Liz is the owner of Tazas y Portadas. She's several levels of awesome, and now she's publishing authors in Spanish back in Puerto Rico, and Publicaciones Lola, I think. I'm not 100% sure because I didn't have that top of mind, but thanks to her, I connected with Letras, and there are so many communities and so many little groups in Puerto Rico that are popping up, and that's happening all around. And from Spilling Ink, I've met people. From interacting with Anita in her live shows, I've met a lot of people. From Go Indie Now, I've met so many people. From doing BookTube, from doing Authortube, from doing, I'm not even sure how I met Margaret, who's left so many questions. And by the way,
that's got to be a Go Indie Now connection.
Well, I met
We're
Margaret
all in
through
the same
JD.
groups.
So
Yeah, the thing is that I brought Margaret to go indie.
yeah, and that's how I came across her.
And by the way, her channel is sensational, and so are all the organizers of Authortube Writing Conference.
Yeah, and I met another favorite horror author of mine, Jessa Forrest, through Christy Stratos and her show with Richard Stevens, Lurking for Legends. She was also on CornCon as well. And honestly, if you like horror, you should go check out Jessa Forrest, because she's really good.
Correction, Margaret. I connected you to Christy. I connected because they both write. They both write historical, and I appeared on Yola Boca Flow at PDX. Wow, was that wasn't last year? That was 2020. Again, just get yourself out there and see who you connect with. If you're going to get on BookTube and AuthorTube, huge channels won't necessarily reply to you, and some people are in it for a full-on ego trip. But that aside, you're going to find some really lovely people, and it's just, you got to put in the legwork. You got to listen to it. Don't listen to it at 1.5 speed. Listen to it at normal speed, so that you can get the cadence and the sexy, silky, dulcet tones. And
I thought of doing ASMR. I mean, you could just,
But you can do that. You can blog hop. You can read other people's blogs, and share, comment, support, and you'll make connections. And Katie and Anita are people that I don't just consider peers. I consider friends. Joe is a brother from another mother. Liz is someone that I really care about. Christy and Anais, some of my favorite indie authors, are people that I met a long time ago and who have been in my corner for a long time. There are people that I met on Twitter that, wow, it's like you're having such a crap day, and then out of the blue they go like, oh, I read this from you, from Google Plus, from ye old, rest in peace Google Plus. I met so many lovely people, and it's all about connections. Now, being comfortable in doing those connections, it's different. Being online and being on live panels and doing in-person events, there are different things, and some people are not comfortable, and it comes with a different set of skills. One is projection. People have to hear you over the dinge of metal music in the background. But that's a whole other ball of wax, and we're going to be at time. So before we run out of time, please, Katie, and please, Anita, tell people where they can find you, and then we can do something for like a half minute. I don't know.
Well, I have a website, afstewart.ca, where you can find all my books and all my links, and I have a nice little YouTube list there now. I put a playlist up on my YouTube channel with all my interviews and stuff. Well, not all of them, but most of them. And I have a group on Facebook, AF Stewart's Minions, where I post all my flash fiction and other people's flash fiction, weird typos, and strange event things.
That's advice to give to all authors. Make it easy for people to find you. Just like Anita puts her name as her website, same thing, katiesolitis.com. That is your one-stop shop to get to anywhere that I am online. All of my social media links are there. Spilling Ink is there. Rising Sign Books is there. Anything that I'm doing is usually filtered through there. So that's the easiest way to find me.
And in the description box, you can find links to these lovely people, and also to Bobby's website. In terms of me, pro tip, and I'm going to close with that, I have JDEstradaWriter on all social media platforms. That's something that a lot of people find out the hard way that they should have done from the get-go. I was like, oh, I just did it because I'm lucky that way. It's not like, oh, I'm so smart, I'm going to put basically, if you're like me, you have like 4 passwords that you repeat, and you vary like a number or a symbol or something. So I did the same in social media, but fortunately I was the first JDEstradaWriter. So look for JDEstradaWriter either on Twitter, either on Instagram, either on Facebook, or the YouTubes, and you will find me. Thank you so much for spending time with us. This has been a blast, as always, with these lovely people. Stay tuned for Authortube Writing Conference. There are a bunch of panels. I'm not sure I'm going to be able to watch most of them live, but the playback is there. So by all means, if you're catching this later, share it with someone. This could help, or maybe it'll just entertain them for a while. So till next time, much love. Peace, love, and Maki rolls. Bye.
Bye.